Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in because we are unpacking some truly fascinating source material today. And honestly, it completely challenges how the energy industry is doing business right now. We're looking at a bold, zero-holds-barred critique of current battery energy storage system, or BESS, procurement strategies. The sources we're digging into make the case that the entire industry is, well, caught in this massive financial pitfall, prioritizing short-term savings over long-term survival. So we're going to look closely at the math, the mechanics, and the mindset needed to build an energy storage strategy that actually works over a decade and a half instead of just looking pretty on paper on day one. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this with the central, most provocative question posed by our source material. Are you buying a storage asset, or are you literally just buying a maintenance debt? Right now, in the middle of this massive global BES rush, procurement teams are, they're hyper-focused on securing the absolute lowest dollar per kilowatt hour upfront. They want that lowest initial price tag. But as the text argues, treating capital expenditure, or CAPEX, as your only metric of success is incredibly dangerous. I mean, think about it. CAPEX is really just the down payment, right? It's the operational expenditure, the OPEX, that actually makes or breaks your investment. If you're only optimizing for that initial down payment, you might not be buying an asset at all. You might just be locking yourself into this incredibly expensive long-term debt, and that leads us to our first major pitfall.
Section 1. The Toaster Fallacy. Procurement's ROI Killer.
The source material uses this brilliant analogy to highlight the problem. Think about a cheap kitchen toaster. When you buy one, you check the price tag, grab the cheapest option that gets the job done, and you buy it. If it breaks in a year, no big deal, right? Now, contrast that with a 15-year industrial battery energy storage system. This is a massive, incredibly complex, long-term industrial feat. And yet, the source points out that we are currently making investment decisions about these behemoths as if we were shopping for that cheap toaster, literally just looking at the price tag. The text makes it absolutely crystal clear. This intense CAPEX fixation is the biggest ROI killer in the energy economy today. You simply cannot buy a 15-year industrial powerhouse using the same bargain hunting logic you'd use for a household appliance. It just doesn't work. So what actually happens when we use toaster logic for industrial storage?
That brings us to Section 2. The Hidden OPEX Time Bomb. Ignoring long-term mechanics.
The source material gets very specific about where this all goes wrong, pointing directly at the cooling infrastructure. When you're hyper-focused on the cheapest initial price, the complexity of the cooling system gets, well, completely neglected during those early operational years. And we are talking about critical, highly mechanical components here. Look at the pumps, the valves, and the regular liquid or fluid changes required to keep these massive batteries from overheating. These aren't static boxes. They are mechanical parts taking immense wear and tear day in and day out. But because they don't cause immediate failures on day one, they're just completely ignored in that initial frantic push for the lowest CAPEX. Let's map out how this builds across the actual lifespan of the asset. This timeline here is drawn directly from the source's core analysis. In year one, hey, everyone's popping champagne. You commission the system at the lowest dollar per kilowatt hour, you scored the cheapest hardware. But the source asks a vital, actually kind of scary question. Who is auditing the maintenance costs of that cooling infrastructure in year 8? Because of that early neglect of the pumps and fluids, OPEX doesn't just rise between years 5 and 8, it absolutely explodes. That hidden time bomb, it goes off. And by year 15, that so-called cheapest hardware you bought at commissioning is now statistically destined to become your single most expensive liability. It's a devastating life cycle trajectory. And the craziest part? The root cause of this really just comes down to a fundamental market misalignment. Which brings us to Section 3, the EPC disconnect. Getting exactly what you asked for. I want to read this quote directly from the analysis because it just perfectly captures the market reality right now. Quote, EPCs deliver what the customer wants, the lowest price. The problem is long-term operations and maintenance, or O&M, is left completely out of this calculation. End quote. Listen, EPCs, the engineering, procurement, and construction companies, they aren't the villains here. They're simply responding to the bargain-hunting procurement models they're faced with. If the customer is pounding the table demanding exclusively the lowest upfront price, the EPC will, naturally, strip out anything that isn't strictly necessary for day one commissioning. That means robust, high-quality cooling systems and long-term O&M considerations. They are entirely left out of the calculation. The EPC gets paid, they hand over the keys, and the asset manager is left holding that ticking OPEX time bomb we just talked about. But thankfully, there is a way to fix this.
Section 4. Shifting to Total Cost of Ownership, or TCO. The mathematical solution. So, the crucial point is that the source material doesn't just complain about the problem, it offers a very clear mathematical solution. It insists that asset managers really must step up and champion the total cost of ownership approach. TCO requires completely replacing that immediate bargain hunting mentality, the toaster fallacy, with strict 15-year life cycle evaluations. You have to evaluate the investment based on what it will cost to build, run, maintain, and cool for an entire decade and a half. It's all about protecting the investment over its actual useful life, not just making the spreadsheet look good on the day the contract is signed. And the source material provides this brilliant, concrete process metric to prove exactly why this mindset shift is so powerful. 5%. What if, instead of fighting tooth and nail for the absolute lowest price, you authorized just a 5% higher CAPEX specifically to procure a top-tier cooling system? We're talking just 5% more upfront for better pumps, better valves, and a far more robust thermal management infrastructure. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of the TCO model. 20%. According to the source's analysis, that minor 5% increase in upfront CAPEX can drop your operational expenditure by a massive 20% over the 15-year life cycle of the system. You spend just a tiny bit more on the down payment, and you fundamentally crush that long-term maintenance debt. This completely neutralizes that exponential OPEX spike we saw hitting in years 5 through 8. I mean, it is a stunning mathematical validation of why you absolutely cannot ignore long-term mechanics during procurement. To summarize this core argument, the source draws a really stark contrast between two completely different realities. First, we have the data sheet, where that bargain hunting strategy looks absolutely fantastic on paper at commissioning. You look like a total genius for saving a few dollars. But contrast that with actual operations over 15 years. The source's ultimate conclusion is that true savings and true quality are realized out in the field, in operation, not on a piece of paper during commissioning. If you sacrifice reality just to make the paper look better, you are actively destroying the return on your investment. And frankly, it's up to industry professionals to reverse this trend. Section 5. Validating the strategy. The asset manager's challenge. The source material leaves us with this final, highly provocative question, and I want you to really think about how this applies to your own internal auditing processes. When did you last validate a manufacturer's maintenance plan in detail against your own operational cost models, instead of just comparing the quote totals? It's a fantastic call to action, right? Stop comparing the bottom line of the EPC quotes. Start demanding the 15-year maintenance plans for those cooling systems. Model out the valve replacements, the pump degradation, the fluid changes. Actually validate those long-term mechanical realities against your own operational budgets before you ever sign that contract. Because if you aren't doing that, you aren't buying a massive industrial asset. You're just buying a really, really expensive toaster. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning those data sheets, and I will catch you next time.